Greetings once again, my friends, my fellow historians, my fellow Titanic lovers. I'd like to welcome you to another video. And this video is going to be on Titanic. I recently showed you guys the Titanic 100 Years Below. It was a box set that came with a DVD, a CD, some memorabilia, and it came with a Titanic book. Well, I actually thought that the book would be a good video unto itself to honor the book. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to go over the book. You can see the story of the Titanic by Hirst. So we're going to take a look at this book as it was part of Titanic 100 Years Below. Okay, so moving on. Again, if you guys are curious on what came in Titanic 100 Years Below, I did a video on this, and I promised you guys that I would do a video on the book that comes with this, as well as the memorabilia. So I'll do a special video dedicated to that because the memorabilia is really cool. And I'll talk a little bit about the DVD in this. Let's do that first. The movie Titanic 100 Years Below. So I'm thinking that the whole project, everything kind of came together. They had memorabilia, they had a soundtrack from the era, they had a DVD, and they had a book. And they were going to release it in a box set. Now, the DVD itself, what it is it centers around the History Channel, and they had a contest. And the winner of the contest was able to go on an expedition to Titanic and go down and see the wreck. Well, the whole premise of the DVD, at least from my point of view, what I was really hoping was that it would show a lot of new stuff. This would have been the 2012 expedition. I was really hoping that they would show more detail of the ship itself. And they actually show a sign above a doorway that has the officers' quarters, and I thought that was really, really cool. But realistically, there's maybe 5 minutes, if that, of footage of Titanic, because the DVD is about an hour. 50 minutes, an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. And the video itself kind of focuses around on the winner. They're on a Russian research vessel, and they go out there, and like I said, I was hoping that it would show more of Titanic herself with the new footage, but like I said, maybe 5 minutes of footage from Titanic in the DVD. That being said, I just wanted to talk to you guys briefly about the DVD. So let's look at the book. Now, this book actually came with the box set. This is called The Story of the Titanic, and this is by Hirst. So it's a really cool little book. It's got, let's see, I'll show you the contents. We got the introduction, the White Star Line, the birth of Titanic, the interior, the passengers, the crew, the disaster, and following the disaster. And this book has a lot of nice photographs in it. You know, realistically, you could probably read the book in like 20 minutes, if that. I'm not going to badmouth the book. I'm not. But what I want to say right off the bat is this is the kind of book, let's say you have a friend that's mildly interested in Titanic, who's not like really obsessed with her like us. You would probably get them a book like this or the box set. And what this book does, it's like Titanic 101. It goes over some of the main components of the Titanic story. Now, if you have a friend and they're mildly interested in Titanic and you have a choice to get that, excuse me a moment, because it's heavy. Or you're going to get this. The Ship Magnificent. What is this? Volume 1. You see how thick this is? And this is just I mean, I can't get enough of this book. There's actually this one. Actually, let me put it to the side. And there's volume 2. So this comes in this amazing, like a box set in itself, and it has a couple of books, volumes 1 and 2, and it's just packed full of information. Everything you could possibly think of to ask a question about Titanic is in these books. But I'm really getting off topic, so I apologize. So if you have a friend who has heard the name Titanic and doesn't really know a lot about the ship, then this would be like the perfect little short attention span, not really invested, looking to really go through her rivet by rivet kind of book. So that being said, again, I'm not disrespecting this book, but this just a certain type that would find this book more interesting than others. You can see that absolutely beautiful picture of her. Let's see, the introduction. April 2012 marked the incredible milestone of 100 years since the terrible tragedy that befell the R.M.S. Titanic. It seems amazing that more than a century after her launch, the story of the Titanic still fascinates us, as deep under the ocean remains continue to rot and decay. So when it goes through, it talks about the survivors of Titanic, and sadly, 2009 marked the last survivor. So she was the last survivor of the Titanic, but she died in 2009, and she was just a baby. It goes in and it briefly speaks about the romance of Titanic. To this day, people that absolutely love this beautiful, magnificent ship. They get some nice photographs. I love that picture of her and her berth. It goes into the White Star Line. You can see this is her launch. And it talks about the White Star Line itself, with Thomas Ismay actually purchasing the company. Let's see, this is short. Although the shipping line was ultimately become the White Star Line, had its origins earlier in the 19th century, when it concentrated on traffic to and from Australia. The history of the company will forever be associated with the Titanic, and can be said to date from January of 1868, when Thomas Ismay, father of Joseph Bruce Ismay, who was the chairman, managing director of the International Mercantile Marine in April of 1912, bought the assets of the bankrupt White Star Line for 1,000, and I don't know if that's quid or pounds. But Thomas Ismay actually saved the company, and what he did was he actually shifted the focus to transatlantic shipping, ocean liner. You can see a picture of him right there. And it talks about his a really brief history of him coming into the company, and J. Bruce Ismay is actually his son. So J. Bruce Ismay inherited the company. It talks about the birth of Titanic, the planning out. You can see that gorgeous picture. You see her in the background. Again, got some really nice pictures. This is more information on the building of Titanic through Harland and Wolff. You see another beautiful picture of her in Southampton Harbor. It also talks of Thomas Andrews, who was in charge, or the head architect. You can see Britannic. A picture of Britannic is a hospital ship during World War I. And look at this beautiful advertisement. This is the White Star Line, the Olympic, and Titanic. If this looks familiar, by the way, guys, I have this in just about all my videos, whether it's Titanic, Star Trek, everything at the desk has that picture in there, and that's the metal sign that I had gotten if that looked familiar. You can see a beautiful picture of the propellers of Titanic. And then we go to the interior of the ship now. You can see that beautiful grand staircase, but this is not obviously the original. This is the replica. And you can see the next pages talk about the interior. The Marconi room, that's not a picture of the Titanic's Marconi room. The one known to exist has kind of like a double exposure with things that kind of doubled up on it, and you can see the back of someone's head. And it talks about, let's see, boiler room number 1, the engine room, accommodated 2 huge reciprocating 4-cylinder triple expansion steam engines. Okay, I'm trying to find the information about the Marconi. The radio room was located on the port side of the boat deck. And it was here that passengers could send and receive messages for a fee. Then you see the gymnasium. Talking more on the inside of the ship, it refers to the Turkish baths, the pool, and of course those are on F deck. Has a couple of pictures of the recovered artifacts and the interior. You see another advertisement where they're talking about the dining facilities. The second-class dining area could hold up to 400 people, and the first-class dining area could hold up to 530 people when fully occupied. Then it goes into talking about the passengers themselves, the different classes, and here's an interesting little tidbit. The Titanic was built to carry 3,547 passengers, of which the staff and crew accounted for 944. So total capacity was 3,547. And when she sunk, she had 2,208 passengers aboard. So she wasn't at full capacity, and because some people had gotten off at Cherbourg and Queenstown, and they were not going to make the trip across the Atlantic. Speaking of Thomas Andrews, you can see a photo of him here. And they're talking about some of the people that were on Titanic. Mr. Andrews, by the way, ended up being on Titanic because Mr. Peary was deemed sick and he was unable to travel. So it was actually Thomas Andrews who ended up going on Titanic. This isn't in the book, it's just a little tidbit that I wanted to share with you guys. More of the passengers, Molly Brown and Lady Duff Gordon. This is a nice picture of the davits, the lifeboats on the boat deck. You get a story of Titanic as told by the survivors. Duff Gordon was not the only male passenger to escape, but so was schoolteacher Lawrence Beasley, who also, after leaving Titanic in such a way, and he later wrote a book on the tragedy. This is an interesting photo. This is J. Bruce Ismay, and this is during the Titanic inquiry. Now, if you guys are curious on what the inquiry involved and all the information in it, I did a video, special video on the inquiry from New York. Taking a look, we have Jack Phillips, the Marconi radio operator. Some of the survivors of Titanic. You can see this is J.P. Morgan talking more about, they seem to talk more about the passengers than they actually do about the ship herself. You can see this is from the New York Herald. The Titanic sinks with 1,800 on board, only 675, mostly women and children, saved. And then we take a look at the crew. This is a really nice picture. You can see William Murdoch, Henry Wild, Joseph Boxhill, and Captain John Edward Smith. It also talks about how there were incidents when Smith had command of the Olympic. Twice she had to be brought back in for repairs. And even Titanic, when she was leaving Southampton, the incident with the New York that could have ended in tragedy, a lot of people saw that later on as really bad omens of what was to come. You see another picture of Captain Smith. And let's see, this is Herbert Pittman, and Charles Lightower. And you can see the officers, a photograph of all the officers on Titanic. And then we go into the disaster. And this is probably my all-time favorite picture of Titanic. I absolutely love this. This is when she's departing from Southampton. It talks about the disaster. By noon on Wednesday, April 10th, 1912, the Titanic was ready to depart from Southampton on her maiden voyage. With 900 passengers, even the liner's departure from Southampton was not without incident. This massive liner gradually emerged from the dock to clear the harbor wall, and a swell created by her passage caused the SS New York, which had been moored alongside Oceanic at berth 44, to break her moorings and start to drift dangerously close to Titanic. It was the captain on board the tug who was able to steer it away from danger, but it now seems even more of an omen of later things to come. You can see this beautiful photograph of Titanic, and look at her boilers. She had 29 boiler rooms. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at her lost. She had 29 boilers, and she had 6 boiler rooms. I'm sorry. Just looking at that picture, I lose myself looking at her like that. Okay, you can see another White Star Line postcard, I think, or an advertisement. This could have been before the ships were actually built, because you can see the bridge. It would be flat, a little flatter than that, and I think there were 9 windows in the bridge, and the bridge wings come off a little bit more. They're not squared off with the rest of the ship. And this is Phillips and Bride, the radio operators, remaining at their posts until the last minute. More on passengers, photographs of passengers on board, and we go to the plan of Titanic showing the lifeboat layout. You can see the lifeboats. They actually have them numbered, but it's so blurry I can't really make it out. And here is the last picture of R.M.S. Titanic leaving the port of Queenstown. And this was on Thursday, April 11th of 1912. What a sight that must have been. And then it goes into the telegram of sympathy, and this looks kind of familiar. I think this was actually included in the box set with the memorabilia. And then you can see Frederick Fleet. He would have been the one in the lookout tower forward, and he would have been the one to warn the bridge of the iceberg. And of everything that is left behind by this beautiful vessel, it was just a handful of lifeboats. And that was basically it. They were They were brought in by Carpathia and other rescue ships, and that's all that remained of the greatest ocean liner in history. Then it goes into following the disaster, the inquiry, and the safety precautions that were implemented after the Titanic's disaster. You see the photos of the lifeboats in the New York Times. And this is the officer group from the R.M.S. Carpathia. Another illustration. So this book itself is, like I said, it's Titanic 101. It has a lot of basic information and knowledge. You can see a picture of the iceberg that was seen around the vicinity at the time. Another illustration of lowering the lifeboats. You can see that famous picture that was taken from aboard the Carpathia, the collapsible lifeboat. Let's see, I do believe these are the survivors. And speaking of the Carpathia, there's a very beautiful picture of her. And we have another picture of something from Titanic's history. This is the actual, let's see, the Russian boat. I'm sorry, it's hard to see, Asiatic, but this is from Titanic. SOS, SOS, CQD, CQD, MGY. We are sinking fast. Passengers being put into boats. And I think this is also in the box set. And just hearing that is just chilling to hear that. Captain Roston in the center, and the officers of the R.M.S. Carpathia. Questions were asked in Parliament about the behavior of Titanic's crew. And this is a good summarization. Mr. J.P. Farrell, to ask the President of the Board of Trade whether his attention has been called to the cases of the men named McCormick and men named McCoy, both natives of northern Langford, and to the ill treated they received from sailors when, after swimming from the wreck of the SS Titanic to two boats, they were shoved back into the sea, struck on the head and hands and seriously injured, and only saved by being dragged into the boats by girls from the same locality. Whether any effort will be made to identify the sailors or boatmen guilty of this attempt to draw these two men, and whether it is impossible to produce them at the inquiry, the British Consul at New York will be directed to inquire into the matter. And that's just a quote. And this is another little interesting bit of information. Because there were survivors that didn't go on to the lifeboats. Matter of fact, there was a lifeboat that never actually, because of the ship was sinking, when it had gone into the water, it actually fell in upside down. And that actually saved over 20 people just clinging on to the boat that was upside down. You can see this is a really interesting picture. Approximately 705 passengers and crew were rescued by the Carpathia in California, with around 1,523 fatalities. See another picture of a lifeboat. And then back at the, let's see, is this White Star? No, this is Cunard. awaiting. You can see all the people over there waiting for news. And look, I like the sweater, a white star line. Survivor's testimony was crucial to the subsequent inquiry. More pictures, that iconic little kid holding that sign. And then it goes into the effects and the way she is now, but she still has the allure to people, and I absolutely can relate to that. We're just under her spell, and that's the book. So, like I said, you could probably read it in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and if you have a friend that's interested in Titanic but doesn't want to know every rivet in the ship, that kind of interest, a casual interest, then this book is perfect. This is a refreshing little book, like being involved or included in the box set. So it's a nice little addition along with the DVD and the CD. It has all the music on it. So my friends, I had wanted to do a specific video on this book because I thought this is pretty cool how they included it in, and I decided it would be worth its own video. So my friends, this was Titanic 100 Years Below. Again, I did a video on everything that was in it. I spoke to you about the DVD, and what I'll do is I'll do a video specific to the memorabilia, because that certainly deserves it. Really amazing stuff. It's copies, but it's copied from the original thing. So my friends, I thank you for watching, and until my next video, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.